Hi, English scholars. Professor Harmon here. I just wanted to take some time to talk to you a little bit about the Week 2 quiz that all of you took a couple weeks ago. I just finished grading them and I recorded your grades. I provided some feedback, but I thought it was really important to create this video because I noticed a lot of the same weaknesses throughout, so I wanted to address those so that you don't make the same mistakes again. And I also wanted to definitely highlight a lot of the strengths. So it was a 3-question quiz. The first question I asked was, I asked you to define realism in your own words. And then I also asked you to talk about what makes a realist text. Now, you could definitely have cited the internet if it was a credible source. You could have definitely cited the anthology. As long as you cited your information, that is fine. And if you wanted to talk a little bit about what makes a realist text by citing secondary sources, that's not a problem. But when I'm asking for realism in your own words, I was asking for just that, right? I wanted you to tell me, after reading 6 stories and reading the introduction to the realism time period, I was hoping you got a really good sense of what it meant to be a realist and what really captures this time period. But many of you were very generic in your answers, so you really have to work on being extremely specific, okay? And showing me rather than just telling me. So what do I mean by that? Let me give you an example of a very generic answer that I received. Realism. What does it mean for a text to be a realist text, right? That was the question. A realist text usually has an author who follows realism and writes in a realist way. Now, I don't know if the writer or the student really knows what realism is or what a realist text does or actually captures if that's the definition, right? Because the writer is writing in circles. A realist text has an author who follows realism and writes in a realist way. Tell me what that is. What is a realist way? Okay? What does it mean if an author follows realism? Okay? So yes, it's a literary time period. It's actually a time period. But what were those authors trying to convey to their readers, right? What were they actually trying to portray? Real life situations, right? And so far, a lot of the readings that we've delved into have been social commentaries on war. So clearly, authors are trying to get across what their life was like during this time period, which was the 19th century. So I was looking for you to tell me that, realism is a real life portrayal. Okay? And it also designates a specific time period. And I was hoping you would give me those years. All right? I'll give you an exemplar for a positive answer to the first question. My definition of realism is a piece of literature that bears a true resemblance to life, without embellishments and romanticism. A text is a realist text if it accurately, honestly, and pragmatically reflects whatever is being written about. Before realism, many authors romanticized the events they wrote about. Many were critical of realist authors because they did not believe that the events, present and historical, should be written about in a matter-of-fact manner. On page 7 of the anthology, realism is stated as a slippery term, one that could be applied to a variety of literary projects. Most commonly, it was used to refer to literary fiction that was rooted in the observation and documentation of the details of everyday life. And then the writer talks about some of the readings that we read. Okay, so that was what I was looking for an answer. So to get the full 30 points, you had to accurately define realism in your own words, and then you had to specifically explain what a realist text might do or look like. Okay? The second question, I asked you to talk to me a little bit about what you're learning about the time period after you read the 2 stories during week 2. So you had to read Twain's piece, and you also had to read Rodman the Keeper. All right? Many of you did not really refer to textual examples. So you couldn't just tell me, well, I got a sense that war was bad, that war negatively affected people. Okay, that's extremely generic, and I don't get a sense that you really read the stories if you're being general. Okay, so remember, the purpose of an assessment is for me to assess your comprehension of not only the stories, but also of the literary time period. Are you making connections? Are you able to extrapolate the really important information? Okay. I don't care that you can memorize quotes. I don't care if you know, specific character names. What is important to me are the big ideas. And the big ideas stem from those essential questions that I posted in Unit 1 at the beginning of the semester. Okay? What designates a realist text? How do we know what it means to be a realist? How do we learn about a literary time period from language, from a story? Okay. So a really, really good answer would be one that brought in textual examples from each text and showed me how those textual examples proved to her what the time period might be like, right? So let me give you an example. After reading these two realist texts, I have a better insight on how Northerners and Southerners may have felt during and after the Civil War. The perspectives differ, and that was something I really was hoping that you would discuss, that the perspectives definitely differed in the two texts. I mean, the editors of the anthology even spoke about that in the introductory material, right? So it's really important that you see you're getting two different perspectives of war from these two texts, all right? So the perspectives differ. As the protagonist of Rodman the Keeper was a Union soldier living in the South during the Reconstruction, and the protagonist of The Private History of a Campaign That Failed was a Confederate soldier. Woolson's text delves into how the Southerners felt about the Northern soldiers. It was beneficial that John Rodman preferred solitude because the Southerners wanted nothing to do with him. He was seen as a traitor, and the Confederates did not want to be associated with him. So notice, this is a concrete example from the text. Even though the Confederacy lost the war, the Southerners did not lose their pride. For example, Bettina would rather have lived in poverty with her family than live with John, a Union veteran. I also learned about the pattern in realist Civil War texts of depicting white and black characters through different vernaculars. For example, on page 80 in the anthology, Pomp states, "But I heard and heard as fast as I could. It's mighty fur to D-town. Proud to see you, sah. Hope you'll come again." Twain's realism piece is from the perspective of a Confederate soldier fighting during the war, and from him I learned the immense pride Southerners felt and just how far they would go to protect the South. One of the main themes of this text was to show how many innocent people died during the war. The protagonist and the Marion Rangers killed an innocent man because they believed he was a Union soldier approaching them. Many of them quit after this event because they realized the reality of war. So what I really liked are the concrete examples and the focus on the differing perspectives. Okay, so that's what I was looking for question 2. That was also 30 points. Okay, and again, if you weren't able to do that or didn't do that, you didn't get full credit. If there were glaring grammatical issues or word construction problems, you didn't get full credit because it was confusing for me to read. Okay, when there are grammatical issues or verb tense issues, or you don't use the correct word or homonym, I have an issue understanding your message, okay? So it's really important that you proofread your work, and you might even want to write your answers in a Word document and then copy and paste it into Blackboard, okay? And then finally, I asked you to talk to me a little bit about Mark Twain and his use of satire, okay? So I shared with you that his piece was a satire and that he was poking fun at something very serious, all right, which was war. So I was hoping you would talk to me a little bit about what Mark Twain's serious position was on Civil War. To do that, you had to relate to specific concrete examples from Twain's The Private History of a Campaign That Failed. All right, if you did not quote the text, if you did not provide paraphrases, you did not get full credit. okay? You have to embed textual evidence to establish your credibility, okay? Let me see if I can find a positive response. This one had a lot of textual evidence, but the textual evidence was very carefully chosen. All right. The writer says Twain believes that war is an unnecessary evil that is ridiculously encouraged and romanticized. Twain writes, we listened to an old-fashioned speech from him, full of gunpowder and glory, full of that adjective piling mixed metaphor and windy declamation which was regarded as eloquence in that ancient time and remote region. Page 321. In this quote, Twain recalls a pep talk given to the group and is poking fun at the idea of war being glamorous and brave. Shortly after, Twain writes, the ass with the French name gave this position a romantic title. Page 322. Again, Twain is mocking the idea of war tactics being glamorized. Later, Twain discusses the fact that none of the town boys were cut out for the war. However, he states, but there were those among us who afterward learned the grim trade, learned to obey like machines. Here, Twain clearly states that war is bleak, and those who become good at it are nothing more than killing machines. Through all of these examples, it is evident that Twain wants his readers to see war for what it truly is. Twain hopes his readers understand that the soldiers fighting are merely scared men, and that what they are doing is not honorable. Instead, it is murderous and cruel. The strongest statement I found summing up Twain's view reads, it was a grisly spectacle to see that earnest band practicing their murderous cuts and slashes under the eye of that remorseless old fanatic. Wow. If that answer isn't exemplary, I don't know what is. I really appreciated that answer because the writer took the time to not only embed really effective and poignant quotes, but explain them and then related it back to her or his answer. Okay? So I hope those examples help you moving forward, because those are the types of answers I'm looking for on a midterm. Okay? I'm looking for you to support your answers with textual evidence, be specific, be concrete, and you can never be too detailed. All right? If you have any questions or you want support writing short answers, let me know. We can do some practice ones together. All right? Have a great week, and please, if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you. Bye.